Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. It's so great to see all of you here in CPR this afternoon. I'm Arkaja Singh. I'd like to just welcome you on behalf of CPR to this program. And without any, you've all seen the program, you've seen the speakers, you've seen what's happening. So without any further ado, I'll hand you over to Remy and we'll get straight into the program. We will have some discussions and all that later, so we'll get a chance to interact a little more, in the later part of today. And so we'll start straight with the presentations, I think.
Okay. So, hello everybody. I'm from French Development Agency, the research department based in Paris. French Development Agency is an international cooperation agency. And maybe I didn't plan to introduce the French Development Agency, but you have here the director of French Development Agency in Delhi, so maybe you will say some words. You want to say some words now? Please.
Of course, yes, I can be heard by everybody. So just in a few words now. Fine. So just a few words. So French Development Agency is a public institution, the main tool of French bilateral cooperation. We are working in approximately 100 countries in the world. We have been working in India since 2008. Meaning that we are celebrating our 10th anniversary of intervention in India. We are providing soft loans mostly to public institutions, to the Indian government, in order to finance projects focused mostly on sustainable urban development. So this is why we're very much interested into the research ongoing with solid waste management, even though so far we've been involved into public transport, into renewable energy, into water and sanitation, into smart cities, but not yet on solid waste management. So our hope and wish is to reach together an agreement with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in order to have a future intervention in the solid waste management in India. So anyway, we're open to any question you may have, and I'm at your disposal to answer any question after this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolas Fornage, so director of AFD Delhi. And so I'm coming from Paris, from the headquarters, the research department. My background is in geography and city planning. I have a PhD in city planning. The way we work at the research department is usually we contract with researchers, either French researchers or researchers from the countries we are operating in order to develop research projects or programs. So we had this wonderful research program with Remy, the researcher, the French researcher here, during 3 years. It was called ORVA 2D. So I'm going to now present the objective of this program and the results. We're going to have 2 books published this year, and they're going to be available online. And we have already a research paper that was disseminated here. Was written by Remy here and 2 other researchers. So it's a comparison between Vietnam, India, and Indonesia. So, the program was about the waste recycling systems in emerging cities, and we had several case studies. I will explain you. So I'm going to present the objective, the case studies, and then the main research result, as you can see. So first, why did the French Development Agency launch this program? Why did we decide to focus on waste recycling and recovery? In French, we say valorisation, but I was not sure it's the same in English. That's why I wrote recycling and recovery, but it includes waste to energy. So, as you probably know, in the international debate, the notion of circular economy is growing in the context of a scarcity of resources, climate change, and of course increase of waste production as well, especially in emerging countries. So this gave birth to a focus among two SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that are mentioning waste, which is the first time, because in the Millennium Development Goals, it was not such a mention on waste. So the one on cities, SDG 11, talk about air pollution and environmental impact of urbanization among its waste, and SDG 12 that talk about sustainable consumption and production patterns mention what we call the three R: reduce, reuse, and recycle. This must be supported. So, as a donor and development bank, AFD has an increasing request from partner countries to support them for the waste management and waste recycling. And at the same time, we are aware of the fact that the public waste management in many developing and emerging countries is or was not always among top public policies priorities, and not so many budget for the waste management. That's why we wanted to research and to promote some innovative practices and also best practices for waste management. We found out that there were also a lot of recent research or international guidelines on waste. There was a first shift at the beginning of the years 2000. There was this report published by a big Netherlands NGO called Waste. Actually, they have a branch in India. It's called 3R, I think, 3R Waste Foundation. And it was the first time that the waste management was presented and promoted as an integrated system. This was from that time that we started to use the notion of integrate sustainable waste management, not only for considering all the value chain of the waste processing, but also considering the environmental impact, the social impact of waste management, and also all the stakeholders that are involved in the process, not only the public, but also NGOs, waste pickers, informal waste pickers, private companies, and so on. And then there were three very important reports, 2010, 2012, 2013, by UN Habitat, the World Bank, and the German Cooperation. All of them also, again, want to have an integrated approach and to consider the environmental issues, the social issues, and they also promote, of course, the recycling, the reuse, and the reduction of the waste. And they take a lot of consideration for the informal sector. And at the same time, we found out that in the French research, there were almost, I think, there were more than 10 PhD recently presented on recycling and waste management in developing countries. So this enabled us to build a team of researchers working to develop this project. So the research question, actually there were several. First, we wanted to understand and assess innovative practices of recycling and recovery. We wanted also to understand better the relation between the public and private sector, including the informal sector at a local level. And we wanted to adopt an economic approach because there is this illusion that waste recycling is profitable. And we wanted to assess that because, in fact, there are also a lot of costs. Then we wanted, of course, to formulate recommendations for public policies and donors' intervention as concern recycling and recovery, and to promote exchange of experiences among emerging countries that we could do while taking several case studies. These are the case studies. So there were 6. As you can see, there are 2 in Latin America, 2 in Africa, and 2 in Asia, among them Delhi. These are the size of the population. We select them for several reasons. First, we wanted, of course, to have case studies in different regions of the world. We wanted also to have low-income countries, middle-income, and emerging countries. We wanted to have small cities, big cities, and we select them for having some innovative practices either compost recycling or waste to energy, several kind of innovative practices that I'm going to present later. This is the quantity of waste produced each day by, but it's written produced. I don't know. Collected? Yes? Okay, collected. Collected per ton per day. And I am lost. I don't know what I wanted to say, but it will come back. Well, anyway, you can see it's big. I forgot. No matter. So this was no, but it's okay. So this was the methodology. The researcher in each cities, they had to fill this kind of indicator, the grids. So there was a social institutional indicators explaining the profile of the city, etc., etc. Budget is not here, but profile of the households and so on. Then exploring the public waste management system, and then financial indicators. So these are the project members. So mainly French researchers, but generally they were working with a local researcher in the different countries. So for here in Delhi, it was with Gauda Shankare. I don't know if he's here, but yeah. And with Rémi, and it was also an association with NGOs. And in any case, in all the countries, there were contacts with the municipalities and I have a problem here. I don't know. Municipalities and institution. Can you help me? Okay. And this. Okay. So the results now. So first of all, this is what we call the characterization of the waste. So in green, it's organic waste. So you see that it's the huge majority in almost every case studies, except Lomé in Africa, because in Lomé, you have also a lot of sand, because the household has, and yeah, I know what I wanted to say now. It's only municipal waste, so it's not industrial waste, electronic waste, and construction waste. But in Lomé, even if it's not construction waste, it is also the sand that is collected by the household, and they throw it into the garbage. But generally speaking, the vast majority is organic. And then you have in yellow, in light yellow, the recyclables, so paper, carton board, glass, plastics, and metal. And then in blue, textile and leather, and in purple, the rest, which is also composed sometimes by dangerous waste. So these are the different kind of processing. So in brown, you have either the sanitary landfill, so where the waste is buried, or the open air landfill, so the waste is just disposed. So again, you see the vast majority of it. In Delhi, part of the waste is incinerated, burnt. The green part, of course, is the compost, so you see it's very little. And in Bogota, you have part of the recycling, which is formally done. I'm going to formally processed. I'm going to explain that afterwards. And the rest is generally the informal sector, and the orange. So innovation one is the integration of the informal sector. So in Bogota, this is the best practices as concerned the integration of informal sector. There are 14,000 waste speakers as compared to 8 million inhabitants. As you can see in Delhi, the numbers are much higher, but also the population is higher, and it's also because there are not only waste pickers, but also recyclers, informal recyclers working in the recycling industry. In Colombia, the fact that the informal sector was integrated, regularized by the public sector, is due to very strong political struggles that started in the 90s, and the role of waste picker was even acknowledged in the constitution. In 2010, for the city of Bogota, there was a new mayor, and he decided to launch this regularization process doing a census and of the waste picker, and then they get a salary, and I'm going to come back to that. The salary they get is saved waste from public collection and processing, is counted in quantity. So almost half of the waste pickers were formalized, and they are paid, and they are recycling 80% of the recyclable waste, and they are covering more than half of the municipality. And household segregate waste. For example, here you see the white bags. It's for recyclable. You see a plastic bottle, while they put the non-recyclable waste in black bags. There was also an attempt to integrate the informal sector in Lima, Peru. Maybe I will not go into detail that much. There are more informal waste pickers than in Bogota for almost the same amount of population. And there was a law in 2009 that also said that municipalities should integrate the informal sector. And they did also a census of waste pickers. They provide them with equipment, as you can see here, the clothes and also the charrette. I don't know how it's called, but you can see it. And trolley, yes, thank you. And they get grant from National Treasury. But they don't give them salaries. The recycler, they get income from selling the goods. It's not as developed as in Bogota, because 90% of the waste is still waste picking is still informal. And in fact, we see a competition between formal and informal. So we are wondering if it's because they don't get any salary. There are not so many incentives for them to be formalized, because they can. Sometimes they prefer to stay independent and to keep on working formally. So innovation too, it's decentralized processing. So I guess my neighbor is going to talk about this also. And this is very much developed in Surabaya in Indonesia with the community waste banks. This is largely due to the mayor, Ibu Risma. The city got several awards. International awards like the ASEAN Environmentally Sustainable City Award, and also national award for clean cities at Dipura. So they got it 5 times. And they developed those waste bank with the support of an international company and with a fund get from their social and environmental responsibility. So among other things, they funded the training for community members to do the segregation. So the communities are in charge of those waste banks, among other services, local services that they are in charge of. So they do the pre-collection at a neighborhood level. They do the segregation. And the households that bring segregate waste are also compensated with different forms. And then the waste banks sell the recycled goods to wholesalers. So in 2016, there were 400 waste banks, and they were covering 60% of the municipality. But what they are able to do is only covering 1% of the recyclable waste. And informal waste pickers keep on working. So this very nice community decentralized processing was also considered as a good way of doing community work and so on, but in quantity it's not that big. It should be further developed. There are also some other, in our case studies, we found almost in all the case studies we found decentralized composting, like in Surabaya. Here the picture right is Antananarivo in Madagascar. This is used also for urban agriculture and then food security at a local level. In Delhi, you have the picture left hand. It's in a New Moti bag. They have also a small decentralized unit. And then on the right hand, this is a not decentralized unit. It's a centralized composting next to the incinerator in Okla. And they process a huge quantity. They can produce a huge quantity of compost. But still, the compost is quite expensive when sold. And so they need to get the support of the state in order to sell the compost. Finally, the economic analysis. So left hand, this is a classical management cost, and it's all over the world, more or less. So usually the biggest part is due to collection. This is the most expensive part of the processing. And then the transfer, it's from the collection point to the landfill. And then around one third or more is due to the sanitary landfill. On the right hand, you have the cost of different step in processing. So what we can see is that again, collection is almost always the most expensive. These are from the case studies, those data. Interestingly, the incineration is in Delhi is much cheaper than in the European Union, but we know that it's not functioning as well as in Europe. And anyway, it's usually more expensive than a sanitary landfill. Be there in Delhi or in Europe, it's always more expensive. And more expensive than composting. You have two data for case studies of composting, and you can see that composting is compared to sanitary landfill and usually cheaper than incinerating. These are the municipal expenditure per inhabitant per year for municipal waste management. So you have the different step with the green is for the collection, the purple for the landfill, and the yellow for transfer. What you can see also is that it's connected to the GDP per inhabitant. Usually the poorest cities spend less money than the richest one. This is quite classical. So the contribution now, so in Bogota, it was the highest rate that we found. It was 60% of the expenses that were covered by household contribution. In other case studies, it's around 30%, and in Delhi, it's almost nothing, in fact, because there is not a special fee for waste management and collection. But in all of those case studies, households pay 100% of pre-collection. So if there is a door-to-door collection, usually it's done by the informal sector, and the household would pay directly, and then they don't feel like paying a second time for the transfer, in fact, for the municipal transfer to the landfill. So we developed what we call the saved cost approach. It was not invented by AFD, but we are in favor of that. For example, so considering the costs that are saved for the public waste management by choosing other kind of processing, including and especially recycling. For example, in Bogota, the formalized waste picker are paid $33 a ton, while the classical waste management would be 47. So the municipality is in fact saving money by paying salary to the waste pickers. And in Lomé, this was a study done in the purpose of promoting a compost platform. So if the compost platform is able to process 5,000 tons a year, then this will save 75,000 US dollars. And if it's able to process 22,000 tons a year, it will save 320,000 US dollars. But the NGOs that did this projection, they know also that there are, of course, functioning costs and that they need the municipal support, but the municipal support needed quite decline as with the quantity of waste processed. And according to the report of UN Habitat in 2010, the waste picker, in average, they save 20% of the cost of the municipal waste management by recycling goods that are not going to the landfill. I think this was my last. Okay, I have no conclusion, but as you can see, we believe that the saved cost approach is quite powerful to promote the recycling, except the other benefit for climate, the planet, the environment, and also the social benefit of it. Thank you. And now I'm going to give the floor to Rémi.
my case, I was responsible of the survey in Delhi, and up, slideshow. So, the title of this seminar is Valuing Waste or Wasting Value. My presentation will deal about the waste modernization of waste sector in Delhi. I won't come back to the data in details about Delhi. If you are interested about getting an overview of which kind of data is available for Delhi, I advise you to read Svati article, actually, the one from Not in My Backyard, which is very well, and my article with Goda, which is in press, a new waste and energy nexus in urban studies. It's getting published in urban studies. What I want to talk today is a little bit different. I want to talk about this pile of waste, this plastic waste tower. This plastic waste tower, we brought it to Indian Habitat Center this week, and it will remain for 2 weeks. It has a value. It has costed 50,000 rupees if we count also the iron that is below the plastic. So it's composed of Sprite bottle on the green side. On the top you have Bisleri bottle, and on the down you have medicine bottle, the black one. This has been very difficult to get and to negotiate. It's coming from where? It's coming from the PVC bazaar. The PVC bazaar, the PVC market, maybe some of you know. It is in Tikri border now. Before it was in Old Delhi, but for safety reasons, because it's mostly dealing with plastic, it has been relegated to the periphery. So now it's almost outside of Delhi. It is at Munka, Tikri border, so next to Haryana. This plastic, so there is like almost 1 ton of plastic, has been supplied by Vijay Chauhan. Vijay Chauhan is one of the big waste dealers at the PVC market. He doesn't look like a waste picker, so he's like a dealer, a businessman. He might come tomorrow for the opening of the exhibition. He might come with Bhushan Ratwaya, another waste dealer, not as nice as Vijay Chauhan. That guy might come also because he's speaking a very good English. He has done an MBA. He was working with Axis Bank, and now he has taken the further business, so he's dealing with waste. These two people, you can see them sometime on the TV at NDTV. They are complaining about the GST. Before GST, there was no GST for plastic. It was 0%. Now suddenly it went to 18%. Finally, after their fight, it has been reduced to 5%. And they are saying, okay, people keep talking about Swachh Bharat, Swachh Bharat, Swachh Bharat, but we are doing Swachh Bharat. This ton of plastic is going to get recycled. This ton of plastic is coming from your dustbin. But they are like dealers, they are businessmen. It's very interesting to talk with them. For them, they are not doing like waste business, they are doing like business. So usually these waste plastic towers, so it's coming from your dustbin, from the Dalao. Some waste pickers collected the valuable waste, in that case, Sprite bottle and Bisleri bottle. It's going to a Gabariwala. It will be weight. So in average, and now it's getting down, but before, one family of waste pickers could get like 60 kg. According to our survey, now it's more between 40 and 50, and yesterday we were back on the field, and apparently it has a little bit reduced. But still, so it makes a living for this family. It will be sold to another wholesaler who will rent a truck and send it to the periphery of Delhi, where it will be segregated again. There will be a job for the driver. So in that case, it's coming to the PVC market because we bought it in the PVC market. Then someone was a machine will compress it, and then we come into the picture, me and Goda, to negotiate this ton of plastic and negotiate also the delivery to Indian Habitat Center. So it took us like 1 long week actually. It could have been faster, but we have less money. So it was a hard negotiation, very hard bargaining. So after these plastic towers, usually is not going to Indian Habitat Center. If you want to see it, that's a good moment. But usually it's not going to the Habitat Center. It's going to some other factory where it will be crush, cut, wash. So for example, from Tikri border, it can go to Narela Bhavana, it can go to Bopura, it can go to different places in Delhi where people have the factories to process it. And then it will go to another factory with another bunch of people working on it. And in that case, because it is plastic, it will be put inside an extruder. An extruder is this machine, so this is not typical from India. I mean, you find it everywhere in Africa, China, and of course in Europe. This is a photo from Europe, from France actually. It's an extruder in France, where the plastic is getting recycled to make these small pellets called dana. And from this, it will get sold to a dana dealer. So in that case, in all Delhi. And based on the different quality, you have different prices. So all the different prices are indexed on the international economy because at the end it's petrol. So it's recycled petrol in a sense. So based on the quality, it can be more or less expensive. The PVC next to virgin, they call it next to virgin, is almost genuine, so it will be expensive. The crystal plastic, they call it crystal, is, when we did the survey about this crystal plastic long time back, it was like 100 rupiah, and they were complaining because the rate of the petrol were going down, and so that crystal plastic was going down also. And yeah, so then after it will be resold again to a factory to produce new product. And for example, so this is a picture taken in Narela. You have these two neck of the bottle. One is a little bit yellow, it's a recycled one, and the other one, which is white, is a genuine one. Okay, so they put it in a machine, they warm it, poof, and it makes some bottle. So it's good. After we can talking about the recycle industry, because it's not, you cannot do it infinitely. At one point of time, you need to add some carbon in the plastic, otherwise the plastic will. But still, it's working properly. And so for me, this tower of waste that we have brought to Indian Habitat Center is a symbol of this waste economies, which has been like, a lot of people have already written about it. So this waste economy, from the waste picker to the factory, there is like many people. So what about the figures that Irene was saying? 50 to 150,000 people in Delhi are waste pickers, according to the Chintan's figures and some other NGO figures. I think that the recycling industry in Delhi is much more than that. Because every time you go to a godown, you have like 200 people, working, segregating. You go to a factory, you have again more and more people. It's much more than that. But it's very difficult to quantify. There is a socio-economic value. So it's this tower of waste is much more than 50,000 rupees. It offers a living for many laborers. So there is no real data about it. There is IAMI, so it's all 2006, with saying that the socio-economic value would be around $66 million a year. I don't know. Really, I don't know. I have no idea. It might be much more. It might be maybe this. I don't know how he has calculated this, but the idea is to say that this waste economy produces a lot of socio-economic value, a lot of job, and a lot of employment, and so a living for family. When we took this tower of waste to Indian Habitat Center, we paid not only for the tower of waste, but also for the driver, to unload the truck, to put it. I mean, we have contributed to this waste economy. It has also an environmental value. I've taken the example of the plastic. I could have taken the example of the paper and or glass or many other recyclable material. It's in a moment of where we are talking about circular economy, save, reduce, recycle, and all this. I mean, this is already existing. In India, it's quite in advance in comparison of many other countries, and much more in advance than in France. And so it's a contribution to a circular metabolism, and it reduces the pressure on the resource. I mean, when you produce a new bottle with this, it's less petrol that you are taking to produce this bottle. So as an average, and again it's an average, if we consider only the domestic waste and not the industrial waste and not the waste which is coming from other states, there is a minimum of 2,500 tons per day in Delhi, which are picked by the waste pickers and which go to this recycling economy. It's a minimum. It's like with the basis that I have to rely on some other data. I took the Chintan data, 50,000. It's a lower scale you can get, 50,000 family waste pickers, as an average 40 to 50 kg each. again, an average, so it goes to 2,000, 2,500 tons. Actually, I think it's much more than that. And it's not without counting the industrial waste and all that. So, but it's not enough. You will tell me, Rémi, you are talking about this nice waste pickers, informal recycling economy, but still, look at this. This is the Aukra garbage mountain, 50 meter high, 55 maybe now. There is 9 to 10,000 of waste which are collected by the municipality every day. It's huge, and Delhi doesn't have any more space to handle this waste. You have like 1, 2, 3, like 4 landfills, and 3 of them should have been closed since long. But still, there is no space to open new landfill. So where do you put all this waste? You keep putting and adding, and at one point of time, it happened like in Gazipur. A few months back, it collapsed, and so that's a huge problem. So of course, it's not working enough. It's not working enough because we'll discuss about it later. It could work much better. It's working much better in some other city, not in Delhi. So, so at the same time, the government has called the private sector to improve, to modernize this waste management. Because the government has understood that it's not possible to let this garbage mountain of waste in the middle of Delhi. So there is a rise of the private sector for collection. Collection is quite new. It was, since 2005, it's mostly transportation, treatment, and now you have also the collection. With Jindal, which is doing the waste to energy plant in Okra, Ramki, who is doing transportation and actually also waste to energy plant in the new Narela Bhavana space where they have treatment capacity. ILFS, who is doing compost next to Okra, at Okra in front of the Jindal plant, the new waste to energy plant in Gazipur. SPML, who is doing mostly the transportation, and the new DDSI, which is actually the new filial, who is doing actually the collection. Delhi Action, so Delhi initiative, Swatch initiative, yes, and they are also South Delhi. They are collecting the waste directly. They have a new methodology to collect the waste almost at the source, at the street level. So the general waste to energy centralized plant, is it a good idea or is it a false good idea? Because it seems to be a very good idea, and I understand the point of view of the government. There is no space. There is no space. There is 9,000 tons of waste collected by the municipality every day. What do you do with it? Where do you put it? The DDA is saying, okay, we do not have any more land for this. The municipality is like, oh, what I will do with all this waste? Let's put it here. We should have closed this landfill since long as there is no more space. So the Jindal waste to energy plant, which has opened in 2011, 2012, it was supposed to be opened by ILFS, but finally ILFS said no, it's better to give it to Jindal, as they have opened another branch much later in Gazipur, saying, okay, it's a good idea, everything, then there is no more landfill. So it seems to be a good idea. The problem is, first, for the Jindal plant, there is a political judicial problem. During long, there was like 21 trial against this plant. It's right in the middle of the city, so association of residents around the plant, environmental activists were against it, saying it's polluting the air. And it's legitimate. We can understand this, especially in Delhi, where the air is polluted enough. It is a good idea to burn again and add some more smoke in the air. So finally, the Green Tribunal, after many years of struggle, has said no, it's not polluting the air anymore. There are some filters, which filter the smoke, and officially now it's going under the norms. So the Green Tribunal has given the final clearance. So still people are fighting against it. And there is also union, association, community-based organization, and NGO of informal workers who are against this, saying, okay, but to make it functioning properly, this waste energy plant, you need to burn waste. And which kind of waste is burning well? Paper, plastic, whatever, what we would have preferred to keep recycled. At the beginning, and now it's less true, I will come back to that in the next slide, there was a huge technical problem. Because, as Irene mentioned, most of the waste in Delhi is organic waste. So especially during the wet season, during the monsoon, explain me how do you burn garden waste or kitchen waste? It's possible, it's still possible, but it takes a lot of energy, a lot of investment to burn it. And also now it's changing, but there was a huge financial loss because some electricity, so you burn the waste, then you generate electricity. And as per the contract, Jindal was obliged to resell 50% of their production, if I remember well, to the public, to the government. But the rate was 2.5. And to make money, the Jindal manager told us that he need at least 6 rupees per unit. So they were losing money. All the time they were losing money. They were expecting also maybe to counterbalance this thanks to the carbon credit mechanism, because the amount of waste that you burn is the amount of waste which is not going to the landfill. So they are eligible actually to get this carbon credit mechanism. But at the same time, the carbon credit market collapsed, so it was not enough to compensate the loss. So at the beginning were very, very, very difficult. If we look at the characterization of the incoming waste at Jindal Waste Energy Plant, and this is the official data. This is not my data, this is their data. From 2011 to 2016, I'll come to it. So as an average, 2011-2015, you have 69% of biodegradable waste and only 30% of high calorific value waste. You know, wood, paper, plastic, all this is very less. But it's an average. Actually, they are doing much better now. Before, it was only 80%. When it has opened, you know, people were they were just burning gardening waste and food waste, and also inert material, because they are supposed to pay the ton. I think it's 700 rupees. I don't remember exactly, but you know, some of the private contractors were putting also inert material into it to make the truck more heavy. So they lost a little bit of money. It was difficult at the beginning. Then slowly it went better. 69% of biodegradable waste. And in between 2013 and 2015, there is no the detail. It's 54%, which means that half of it, the remaining part, is like high calorific value material. So it's working much better. 16% at the beginning of plastic, paper, wood. 31%, 46%. It's working much better now. And that's why currently nowadays, I will discuss this data after, the waste energy plant in Jindal is almost working at full capacity. And the air is dry, and there is much more high calorific value material, so it's working properly. In 2015, you can look, there was like 19% of food and 12% of paper carbon. Now, the latest data which is available online is a monitoring report for 2015 for 1 year 2015 till March 2016. So I don't have the data after that. What it is showing that it's stagnating. It's still the same thing, like 56% is biodegradable waste, and 44% is high calorific value material. But the big difference with before, it is that this 27.4% now is rubber and leather plastic. They have put it in the same category now, which make it like the second most important material after the food waste. So basically, it's plastic. Why is it better now? Because they have been able to control the flow from the source, because it's more or less correspond to the apparition of this new, so it's a filial of ILFS company who is doing the collection. And actually, if you look at the municipal data that I receive every day, you see that this private truck, are collecting the waste in some specific pockets in South Delhi and going directly to the waste energy plant. These DDSI people are not going to the landfill. They are going only to feed the waste energy plant. And they can control the flow of waste at the source. So, of course, they are getting much more plastic because they have this new methodology to collect the waste. It's not door-to-door collection properly. It's like more street collection. They are able to capture the plastic waste at the source. So if we look at the effects on the landfill, on the compost and the waste energy plant in terms of tons and volume of waste, between 2016, because I did not get the data before that, and 2018. The waste energy plant in Okla, which was not functioning at all 2 years back, with only 1 ton of waste every day, and The capacity was 2,000, 2,500 tons in some documents. Let's say 2,000. In January, so the time where it's supposed to work because it's not raining, the waste can burn easily. It was only half of it because too much gardening waste, too much food waste. Now, so it's the last week, the data from last week. You have 1,862 tons, which is equivalent to 279 trucks. All these trucks coming from the pocket controlled by this private company. Again, this is only the official data of the municipality. If you look at the composting plant, the ILFS composting plant, it was not working 2 years back for different reasons. We can come back to it during the discussion. That's not the talk that I want to give now. It's not still working properly nowadays. There is different explanation. If there is a solution, there might be some solution to improve it a little bit, but it's not really functioning. So there is only less than 160 tons of compost produced, and it was designed for 500 tons. Now the landfill, because at the end, what we were talking about, it was a landfill. So in 2016, there was like 1,000 tons, equivalent to 221 trucks, which were going to the landfill in Okla, this big mountain of waste. So 2 years back, we can expect that since the waste energy plant is functioning, this has stagnated or even maybe it has reduced, It's not at all the case. The situation has not changed at all. There is still 1,868 tons of waste which is going to the landfill. So what is happening? It means that actually all these waste energy plants have not any effect on the volume of the landfill. Actually, the waste energy plant is burning plastic, so it's burning the tower of waste that we brought to Union Habitat Center. So you should go now because otherwise you won't be able to see it anymore. And now the municipality of Delhi, South Delhi municipality, which is in charge of the Okla landfill, has applied again for a new landfill. And to get the environmental clearance. So for Christmas, just like 2 months back, so 25/12/2017, they have asked again for a new landfill. At the same time, so it's not really properly working. They are burning waste rather than processing the waste which is going to the landfill. At the same time, you have people like from the Safai Sena, so Jay Prakash Chaudhary, he will be coming tomorrow, who are saying, okay, you are burning waste, but this waste was our livelihood, and if you burn it, what we'll be doing? You can't do that. And so he felt, and with the Chintan NGO, he felt this situation before, and he said, okay, so that's a documentary that they have done before. The government has engaged private companies to collect waste, and because of this, we don't get enough waste anymore. This has affected our livelihood. So I've not done the survey myself, but Chintan has done some survey next to the Okla landfill, and it shows that effectively it has reduced the amount of waste that people were able to pick every day. What I just noticed is that since like now 3-4 years, I keep asking to waste pickers with Goda, my colleague Goda, how many kg did you get today? It was 50 kg when we began. It went down to 40, 50, and now yesterday it was even people were saying less than that. So it has an effect. It has affected waste pickers' capacity to collect waste. So in this documentary, which is very interesting, he is asking to waste pickers, so Santu, Jay Prakash Chaudhary, what do you think about all that? And I found it very interesting. So from an academic point of view, because they are saying, I just want to say, so that woman is talking and saying, okay, what do you want to say to the government? I just want to say that start dumping again, don't be influenced by what richer people say, listen to the poor. It's very interesting to have this like kind of Marxist point of view coming from waste pickers. And so this has been already documented, so I will go very, very fast on that. So Schindler and all were saying, following Harvey, the process of waste sector can be seen as an example of accumulation by dispossession, which means that there is an inherent necessity of the owner of capital, for example, the incinerator, to separate, by force if necessary, laborers, like waste workers, from the means of production, waste, transfer station, current privatization of door-to-door collection, etc. Once this process is complete, a small number of waste workers are offered the opportunity to sell their labor, for a wage in a waste-to-energy plant. And that's true. The people who are working on the landfill, or maybe 200 of them, 10 of them would be, maybe a little bit more, would be working in the waste-to-energy plant. So the exclusion linked to the waste stigma, because these people are already excluded, they are working with waste, is then reinforced by a dispossession of their means of subsistence. And there is Reddy who came with this concept of abjection. So it was not talking about Delhi, but about the case in Bangalore. For him, abjection is a concept which tries to gather this injustice to be excluded and the humiliation of being expelled from a sector to which they have always belonged, because they have always been working in West, and so it's over. So he has created this concept that I like of abjection. So to sum up, the waste management model like incinerator can be seen from this point of view, as a based on capitalist accumulation against another type model based on labor force. So, as in other developing cities in the world, this modernization of waste management in Delhi can be seen as a reflection of a sanitary ideal that seeks to replicate the technical solution developed in the north, within which the informality of poor neighborhoods and their non-modern waste recycling practices has little or no place. And with regard to the similar process in Cairo, Bénédicte Florin, who is here, note that this is ideology of modernization that makes public decision makers consider informal sector as ineligible for integration into the new plan system. So the urban elite and the creditors, like the World Bank, like also the French element of agency, but apparently you think different, which is good, for whom the collection systems in India are primitive. And I'm quoting the World Bank, 2008, page 19. They see recycling workers as backward and incompatible with modern waste management. Okay, so this Kabarivala is non-modern, but there are many other people who found it very modern. Kabarivala Online, you can sell now your waste with an application on your phone. PomPom was one of the first. It's actually a guy from Ramki. Ramki is this company who is transporting and treating the waste now in Narela Bhavana. You have many of them in Delhi. I'm talking only about Delhi. Huh? If we go out, beyond Delhi, it's even more. You will tell me, okay, but this is like, just for dry recycling waste. What happened with there is no something little bit, who could gather together with the other kind of waste, the biodegradable waste? Yes, there is. The Swatch Cooperative in Pune. So I was there in December. So it can be a pretty. You can critique it from some other side. Me, I'm just saying that now you have these waste pickers, they have a livelihood, and I went to the landfill. And I was asking, so I don't have the data on Pune, I was not working on Pune, but I was asking very simple question to the guy who is in charge of the landfill, the municipal guy. I was asking, okay, now you have more trucks coming in since the last 10 years, or you have less trucks? Hey, you have much less trucks, he was telling me. Now, how many workers are on the landfill? Do you have like many like before, or do you have a little bit less? Of course, there is less, because thanks to Swatch in Pune, the waste is segregated at the source, so it offers not only employment for the people and protection, they have all these gloves and all that, it can be much more improved. But at the same time, they segregate at the source, they do compost also in situ. It's more or less what is doing Kudum Bashri in Kerala, so I've not met them, I'm meeting them this Saturday. And that's what Chintan would like to, this kind of agendas I would like to push forward. It actually exists already in Delhi, more or less, but only in the very rich area. In Defense Colony, you have Toxic Links and Ravi Agarwal, who has implemented that the same system, similar system, but only in one block. So there is only maybe 15 workers who have been, let's say, legalized, and they do compost in situ. Now they have 6 pits, a very good compost that they resell inside the neighborhood. because people have more, they can afford this compost. 50 rupees per kg, I think, if I remember well. Again, I'm not sure. This is all data. And yeah, so it could be developed. You will tell me, okay, this is only NGO. No, it's not only NGO. You have CREDI, Clean City Movement, which is an association of builders, which is also developing new solutions to reduce the waste at the source. So they are building this condominium. Again, it's for the middle class, upper class elite. But they do treat the waste in situ in the condominium. So they have like biodigester, composting plant, and the trash guard machine. So this, I cannot talk about it. I'm meeting them again next week in Kochi. And in Delhi, so Irene has mentioned the new multi-bag experience. They call it zero waste. I mean, to make it more fancy, it's not zero waste at all, because actually all the dry recyclable waste is going to be sold to the Kabari Vala. But actually, it's remain interesting because they are able to treat the biodegradable waste in situ. So they have this compost making plants, this pellet making plants, which apparently is functioning. So it costs a lot of money. So their problem is that it's not financially sustainable. They were expecting that the government would have provided some advertisement for them, next to a new multi-bag where a lot of people are going, and they will be able to sell this space for some private company and make money, with it. So for the moment, the government has not allocated. So they are losing money. So valuing waste or wasting value. After seeing all this, and after seeing my tower of waste, that we brought to Indian Habitat Center and talked to people, etc., I think that waste modernization, in that case, can be seen as a pretext for urban exclusion of one fringe of the population. I know it's a little bit strong argument, but there is a symbol in everything, I think, and it's very symbolic that the emblematic PVC market, for safety reasons, as I understand, has been relegated to the periphery, almost outside of Delhi, while incineration is taking place in the middle of the city. It's very interesting that the Green Tribunals is closing small-scale recycling workshop. Very often, if you read the news, you will see that in Bangalore, in Bopura, etc., etc. A lot of small workshop has been closed for not respecting the norms. Okay, that's good in a sense, But at the same time, it gives clearance to the Jindal plant, which respects the official norms. So it's good to come back to academics sometime, and I like this quotation from Baviskar that you might be knowing. For the bourgeois environmentalists, the ugliness of production must be removed from the city. Urban spaces should be reserved for white-collar production and commerce and consumption activities. Vinay Gidwani and Reddy thus put forward the concept of eviscerating urbanism. For them, this waste modernization in Delhi is a way to to make this recycling economy figure of waste, and eviscerate them from the city and by putting them in the periphery. And they are not totally, I don't know, but I found that quite right. If you look at the last Delhi Master Plan and its vision for a global city and a world-class metropolis that got rid finally of its pollution, this waste informal recycling industry, and its slums. So you can consult ZDA 2010. And I will conclude on this, that despite you burn the valuable tower of waste, this plastic bottle that I've shown at the beginning, and even after that, you still have people trying to get something out of it. This picture has been taken at the top of this Okla landfill on the garbage mountain. This black stuff is actually ash. It's ashes coming from the waste energy plant, the Jindal one. And these people around it have magnets, and despite their means of subsistence has been burned, they are still trying to get something out of it. Without protection, it's terrible, and they have big magnet, and they will take the mâche fer in French, we say, like the loa, the metal, which cannot be burnt by the incinerator. So even at that point, you will have this recycling, economy. This waste economy will still be there. So my point was to say that if you cannot, I understand that I understand the point of view of waste incineration. I understand that it can appear to be a good idea, but I think it's a false good idea, because if you neglect the social complexity of a city like Delhi, with 16 million of inhabitants officially, with a huge inequality, if you neglect this huge inequality, if you pretend to be like, oh, let's do like Singapore and New York, and no, we are not in Singapore and New York, so there might be another option, the option that I have presented before. And so for me, this modernization of the waste sector in Delhi is more than just, is more than needed, given the urgency of the situation, this big landfill. But the modalities of this modernization are actually a process of remodeling urban spaces to conform the aesthetic models of the upper class, and I belong to these upper classes, in order to replicate Paris, New York, or Singapore, within which the poor have no place. Thank you.
I just want to add that according to sanitary and environmental norms, the rest of the incineration should not be dumped into open air sites. And we think it's also one of the reasons why incineration is cheaper here, because it's not done as it should be. And of course, in France, we don't do that. I hope. I don't know actually. So this is also costly to treat this part of the rest of the incineration, in fact.
We had two very insightful presentations. I'll be majorly talking about sustainable options for waste management, basically decentralized processing. I'm Swati, and I'm heading the waste management program at CSE. I've been with the organization past 8 years now, and we've been also doing some work on implementation in a few states in the country, as well as in the global south. So I'll share our experiences, what have been our learnings, and what should be the way ahead for cities like Delhi or for smaller towns of the country. But just a brief about our journey on waste management. He also mentioned we did this report almost a year and a half back, not in my backyard. And before we even kind of conceptualized this report, it basically started as a survey. Basically, way back in 2014, we kind of wanted to understand what is the definition of a clean city in India. I mean, if there are states or if there are cities in the country that the term themselves as clean, what makes them clean? And we have a fortnightly magazine, Down to Earth, and we put up a survey there asking different stakeholders, regulators, NGOs, residents of cities, and it was on a public platform that you tell us which is the cleanest city in the country, and we'll go there, we'll try to understand what makes these cities clean, and we'll document about these cities. We'll basically try to understand what makes a city clean. And through that we got a lot of answers. We in total got about 25 to 30 cities. And after that, we shortlisted about 13 cities. And over a period of 2 years, we visited these cities, spent a period of 1.5 to 2 to 3 months in every city, and tried to understand, how do the corporations work, how do residents work, and basically what makes a city clean. And there were three things that came out of the surveys that we did. First is that what makes a city clean? What is the process? Secondly, how do we contest the issue of the obsolete data? If we say that Delhi generates about 9,500 TPD, or that is actually the amount of waste that is collected by the corporations, is it the true picture, or we actually generate more? And lastly, where do we go from here? So basically, these were the cities that we studied, and we divided our research into three groups. Basically, all the cities that we studied were divided into three groups. Section was, one were cities that were segregating, they were processing, they were recycling. To some extent, they were also zero landfill cities. We have examples of Alapura in Kerala, which recently got a UN recognition as well. We have Bobli in Andhra Pradesh, we have Panaji, we have Mysuru in Karnataka. Group 2 were cities which to some extent were segregating, to some extent processing, but then at the end of the day, of course, they were dumping, and something was not complete in Group 2 cities. We had Aizawl, we had Pune, we had Surat, we had Suryapet in Telangana, and the last group were cities which probably were visibly clean, but they hadn't worked around systems of segregation or processing. We have Delhi, by Delhi I mean the NDMC area of the Delhi, Chandigarh, Gangtok, Shimla, Agartala. If you visit these areas, these cities, they look very clean, but then in the end they were just collecting and dumping. So the other issue was of how much do we generate as a country. If we look at the official figures, we are somewhere around 62 million tons per annum as per the CPCB data. But is that the real data? Because if we look at the amount of garbage that informal sector generates, and if we add to it, it's about 10,000 tons per day that is managed entirely by the informal sector alone in the country. So if we add that to the real generation figures, the values are much higher. So basically, we are dealing with obsolete data, and we are planning on obsolete data. And when we look at our thumb rules of per capita waste generation, they don't fit in the current scenario. Presently, we are working in this city of about 0.5 million population, Muzaffarpur, and on the ground, per capita waste generation is coming around 0.8 to 1 kg per day. That's for a city with just 5 lakh population or 0.5 million population. So where you think we are for Delhi, where you think we are for Bangalore, where you think we are for all our metropolitans. And of course, the generation of, the quantum of waste generation, it's increasing by the year. As we are becoming more prosperous, as our lifestyle is changing, we are generating more and more. So, just for your reference, our waste generation is basically outpacing our population growth by 2 to 3 times. We've mentioned that in our report, Not in My Backyard. If we look at our dependence on landfill sites, we are basically working with a lot of corporations in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. And if you ask the municipalities there, what is waste management for you? Their answer is, we need a plot of land, They understand waste management as some hectares of land where they can collect all the city's waste and dump it. The city where we are working very closely, Muzaffarpur, the entire city's first, of course, they had obsolete data. On records, it was 170 tons per day, but in reality, it's 270 tons per day, and of which they're collecting about 50%, and they're dumping it in a plot of land 12 kilometers away from the city, right in the heart of agricultural fields. So which is the status with most of the cities across North India? I mean, I'm not putting the entire country in a bad picture, but with most of the cities, that is the state. You name Delhi, you name Chennai, you name Mangaluru, land is a major issue. And if we keep on dumping the way we are as of now, by 2047, we'll need a chunk of land the size of Hyderabad, Chennai, Mumbai added together to dump all our garbage. So that was another question, like, do we want does our dependence on treating waste be land intensive, or should we move to more sustainable options? He highlighted a lot about waste to energy, and you also talked about it in bits. But when we look at a composition, in a holistic sense, waste to energy not fits in, because composition would decide your technology. It's not the other way around. But even smaller cities like, I don't know if you know of Manali in Himachal Pradesh, but very, very small cities of the country with hardly a population between 1 to 5 lakhs are also planning for waste to energy plants. I also got to know that there are a lot of cities in which small plants are sold at RWA level, at colony level, that you can take this box and you can burn the entire waste of your colony. So it's going there as well. But of course, the big question is that, do we really need to burn? Do we really need to incinerate? And we finally concluded a report by suggesting cities or the country that, we need to change the following to have a better waste management in the country. First is that landfills is clearly not the answer. We need to move to better options which are least land intensive. And everything needs to start with segregation. Most of my presentation today is based around segregation. Decentralized processing comes later, but we need to start with segregation. That's number one. We need to charge and penalize. Of course, there is a very redundant system of penalties and charging user fee in our country, so that's a very big issue. Of course, informal sector is critical. Our policy makers, our different stakeholders, corporations need to stitch them very much as a part of our municipal system. We need to redesign our municipal contracts also. The concept of tipping fee in the country is entirely misunderstood. We charge tipping fee for collection and dumping. Ideally, it should be charged for collection and processing. So that needs an entire turnaround. And good management is, of course, the key issue in terms of infrastructure, in terms of resources. In a lot of cities, there's only one city manager who looks after sanitation and solid waste management in the country. How can one person handle a city of 0.5 million? I mean, it's not really possible. And of course, we need to celebrate, not in my backyard. A lot of good management practices that have come in the country have been in cities where a lot of protest happened because someone stood up and said, not in my backyard. So we really need to celebrate it and respect it foremost. But also the good thing has been that past 2 to 3 years, there has been a paradigm shift when we talk about solid waste management. We are talking about segregation. If we talk about the last municipal solid waste rules that came up in 2000, they clearly said that, construction of a sanitary landfill is required for any city. But moving to the solid waste management rules 2016, which took almost 16 years to come, it clearly has said that efforts shall be made to recycle or reuse the rejects to achieve the desired objective of zero waste going to landfill. So, of course, the new rules do talk about minimization, but that's just on papers. Where are we going? Segregation, as he also said, Swachh Bharat, segregation, they are majorly buzzwords. If we look at the ground, I mean, of course, there are a lot of lacunae. One is that the campaign on segregation by Swachh Bharat Mission, of course, there's a big question mark on it. Is distribution of 2 bins sufficient, or do we really want this entire mission to be all about distributing bins to corporation? And how could a segregation model be operationalized? Of course, you can only go in for decentralized processing if you're segregating. The entire mechanism is futile if you're not segregating, which is what is happening with Delhi. We are not segregating on the ground, and we're talking about processing. What we say is that we can do segregation by various models. One is the Alapura way, which is very unique. Alapura is a small city in Kerala, wherein there is no collection mechanism by the corporation. The residents of this city are segregating at source into wet, dry waste, also into a lot of components like plastic, paper, milk sachets, etc. And the municipality only collects dry waste from the households at regular intervals. Wet waste management has been the onus of the resident of this city. So one way is that, do we make the generator accountable, that you're the generator, you treat your wet waste, we'll probably devise a mechanism to collect dry waste. We have the Panjim way where, residents, commercial areas, hotels are segregating into 5 different components. So it's a 5-bin system. Or there are a lot of case studies in between. So what we say is, of course, what's important is also replicating local best practices, which probably we are not doing at all. If Delhi has one classic example of composting center in Defense Colony, it hasn't been replicated past so many years. We didn't replicate it anywhere else. So I think that is really required. So what we say about this framework for segregation, one is that you incentivize segregation. You create mechanisms wherein you probably incentivize the collector or incentivize the resident. You propagate for segregation. You design for segregation, which means if your households are segregating, even your collection mechanism needs to ensure that waste is collected in a segregated manner. you treat it in a segregated manner. Classic example is Delhi, wherein even in a few colonies where segregation is happening, at the secondary collection center, it just gets mixed. And a lot of residents oppose, why should we segregate if it's getting mixed at the end of the day? So basically, you create a system which supports end-to-end segregation, right from resident level to all the way to the processing center. And there has to be a proper performance assessment and evaluation, because we are very new to segregation as a culture. We didn't talk about it. About the framework for segregation, what exactly it is. One is that achieve 100% segregation of waste as a resource. You have 100% collection and transportation of segregated waste. You do decentralized processing. 90% recycle and reuse of segregated waste. We say that, of course, landfills are required, or you need a sanitary landfill for cities, but for only 5 to 10% of inert or residual waste, not for everything. And work towards making our cities zero landfill cities. I mean, for the future, we can't have, unlike Delhi, we can't just keep on looking for land, because at some point, look at Delhi. I mean, probably when Ghazipur was chosen as a landfill, we didn't envisage that the city will reach there. But right now, we have Ghazipur dump site facing apartments. So do we want cities, to grow like that? Because eventually the landfill will become a part of the city. So we are looking at zero landfill models for a city, something which Alapura has in our country, and make solid waste management financially self-sufficient. I mean, you also talked about the fact that most of the times municipalities are not able to recover money, either through user fee or through penalties or through collection of taxes. The way a municipality operates is absolutely redundant in nature. And when we talk about the financial sustainability of this model, on the basis of our work in Bihar, we feel that yes, if we make our waste management systems intensive on segregation and decentralized processing, it is absolutely financially self-sufficient. We have worked around the cost. So looking at a city of about 1 lakh households, which is about 0.5 million population, the cost of maintenance and operation comes about 10 crores annually, and 80 to 90% per household per month is generally given by cities or by the municipal corporation. There are a lot of state grants that are given to corporations for collection and transportation. And a majority of this money right now goes in just the salary of workers. If you look at municipal expenditure on solid waste management, 80% of it goes on the salary of workers, 15% of it would go on collection and transportation, 1 to 2% on processing if there is any in a city. That is the basic, scenario as of now. What we're saying is that unlike the unsegregated and landfill model, transportation-related cost is low if you look for decentralized models. So in Alapura, if 10 years back the city had an entire centralized model where they used to collect all the garbage and dump it in Sarvodyapuram, today the city has moved to a decentralized model wherein there is no collection of wet waste by the corporation. And this has reduced the cost of municipality to about 70 to 80% on transportation itself. So what we're saying is, if your model is decentralized, you'll save a lot on collection and transport cost. And with user fee and revenue from sale of biogas or compost, the operation and maintenance cost can be easily met. I can share with you the entire paper in detail, but I'm very briefly talking about it here. So excluding the capital cost, which is majorly on infrastructure, resources, and the propagation cost, you also would need volunteers or staff for propagation, which is to spread awareness on segregation. So if you exclude that cost, the model is financially self-sufficient. And this is a uniquely Indian model because it's frugal and, we are generating wealth from waste at the end of the day, and this is what we are good at. This is what we've been good at all this while. I'll just share with you some of the pictures of our implementation work in Muzaffarpur, Bihar, and this is entirely based on this model. It's been 1.5 years that we've been working there in the city, and the scenario 2 years back was that probably when I went there and came back after a scoping study, I fell sick for almost a month. It was so dirty. And today, if I look at it, we've been able to divert, if not 50%, almost 25% of the waste that used to go to the dump site. So we are probably halfway through. It'll take another year for us to stitch the gaps, but we feel that yes, it is possible. So this has been some of the major impacts that we have achieved there. There are about 49 wards in Muzaffarpur, and about 1,500 to 3,000 households are there per ward. And daily 270 metric tons of waste is generated. We are doing both commercial level propagation as well as household level propagation, which means pushing citizens of the city to segregate. 70 volunteers have been hired for the same from the city itself. So this model is also, generating income for the residents of that city itself. We have about 440 composting pits to handle wet waste in the city. There are about 7 decentralized compost centers that have been constructed by the corporation itself that will be able to handle all the wet waste generated in the city. And about 80% households are segregating waste as of now in the 24 of the 49 wards where this work is happening. The waste collector, majorly the informal workers as well as the collectors, which are the staff of the municipality, the share of dry waste has been given to them. So every day they collect waste into wet, dry and domestic hazardous waste, and they sell the recyclable dry waste, and they are incentivized for collecting segregated waste. As of now, it is the only city in Bihar that is segregating. Based on this model, the state has asked about 13 ULVs of Bihar to adopt this model. So more than me, I'll let the pictures do the talking. So this project was launched on 16 December 2016. What we do is that, we feel that working on the ground, the basic learning has been that waste management is not about technology or all the hard infrastructure that you'll get for a city. It's majorly social engineering. How will you change the behavior of people who've been accustomed to something for generations? So what we do is that in every ward where the segregation campaign is launched, it's done like a festival where the mayor or the commissioner of the city would come and bins are distributed, there's some local music so that people get affiliated, that it is not something mechanical, it's a celebration. Keeping your city clean is a celebration in itself. There are 70 volunteers from the city who go door to door, who tell people how to segregate. There are pamphlets that are distributed. It takes almost a week or a month for households to start giving segregated waste. For some, they get it. For some, they don't get it. But then if their neighbors start giving segregated waste, they also are, kind of pushed towards giving segregated waste. So it's basically behavior change. I mean, probably if I say that I won't give segregated waste, why should I put some extra effort in it? And all my neighbors are giving it. Probably the 10th day, I'll start giving segregated waste. So that's what we have observed there. And kids play a very important role. I mean, women and children, we've seen they are more enthusiastic about giving waste in color-coded bins. They know what is blue for, they know what is green for, they know how to give sanitary napkin in a paper wrapped, in a newspaper. And for most of us who are from this country, this thing happening in Bihar is a shocker. Probably this thing happening anywhere would have been okay, but the state of Bihar is doing this. This is the dry waste. We didn't ask the corporation to buy more tippers or more vehicles to ensure that, to give segregated waste. We asked them to create partition in their existing vehicles. So that's what they did. This was a tipper which used to collect mixed waste. And we asked them that you just make a normal partition in your existing tipper. And that is how they're collecting wet and dry waste. This is the model composting site that has been developed by the corporation, where almost waste from 9 to 10 wards is going as of now, wet waste. This is the first batch of compost that came out. I mean, almost 3 to 4 batches have come out. We are right now checking the quality of the compost. But as a goodwill, this compost was distributed in all the 24 wards where the segregation campaign is happening, so that people know that, they're doing some extra effort. What are they doing it for? They all are contributing towards making the city clean. The impact has been massive in the sense that most of the streets which were littered earlier with garbage, the first thing that we did was we asked the corporation that you clear all the dark spots of the city. Because what happens as perception is that wherever there's a lot of dump, people would just continuously keep on dumping there. So we ensured that we pushed the corporation that you clean all the black spots of the city so that if the streets look visibly clean, people stop dumping. And then probably with the segregation mechanism, things will change later on. But yeah, there's been a massive change on the ground. These are some of the pictures from different areas of the city. Also, a lot of initiatives are taken from time to time by volunteers, the corporation, CSE itself. This was some pond cleaning drive wherein 70 volunteers came up together and cleaned this area. We also felt that, teaching commercial areas how to segregate is also very important, because what happens in routine is that these people, they open their shops and all the dry waste that is there, they'll put it in all the open drains, which further would choke the drains. So we asked them that you all must be having a carton, you keep all your dry waste in the carton and the corporation will collect it somewhere in the noon. So that also kind of helped in ensuring the litter of the city reduces drastically. We also drafted the bylaws for the city because it was very important to stitch everything with a policy framework on place. From time to time, a lot of public events happen in this city. We have ensured that there's a media group that keeps on reporting about the efforts that have been happening, because it's very important for everyone to know what's happening in the city, and media plays a key role in disseminating information. So that was about Muzaffarpur, and our major learning working in the city has been that waste management is nothing but social engineering. Everything else will fall into place eventually, but what's most important is that you need to change someone's behavior. And if you're successful in doing that, the rest of the job will be taken care of, more or less. The resources will come, but if you're not able to change someone's attitude, nothing will happen on the ground. We also worked in Delhi. CSE was a part of the High Court appointed committee that was asked to draft the present solid waste management bylaws that have come, and we also gave an action plan for the city which is currently being followed, and more information is same. But if you look at Delhi as a city, I mean, working in Muzaffarpur is far more easier, but Delhi is more complex as a city. 5 MCDs have over 280 municipal wards, and they generate about 14,000 tons per day of solid waste, of which about 10,500 is collected. That's the municipal data. The per capita waste generation as per records is about 500 to 600 kg per capita, but I'm assuming this is a lot higher. I mean, this is an obsolete data and no one should plan based on this data. About 50 to 60% of the waste is organic in nature, 25% is inert, and remaining are recyclables. 10,500 tons per day is collected by the MCDs. That has been the data provided by them. And the processing capacity of the city is about 6,100 tons per day. What's really shocking is that most of the processing happens by waste to incineration. About 80% of the city's waste is processed by waste to energy plants, and remaining is dumped in the 4 dump sites that we have right now. Now, the major challenge, foremost, is of course that we are not clear about the composition and not clear about how much data is generated in the city. There is a lot of lack of compliance and enforcement capacities. There is non-availability of infrastructure for segregation. We recently had the bylaws in accordance with solid waste management rules, but the last bylaws that came under the Delhi Municipal Act, which were being followed, the user fee or the charge for penalty was as low as 50 rupees. And anyone can get away with a fine of 50 rupees. So, of course, the last bylaws were really redundant in nature. One of the major issue is the unauthorized areas and slums that are there in the city. As per the data, there are about 1634 unauthorized colonies in the city, and there is no system of collection in these areas because they don't fall under the MCD's jurisdiction. So that's a major problem. There is inadequate waste processing. About 80% of the waste that we are processing is by incineration. But another issue is that the calorific value of the waste that we are processing is extremely low. So it's about 1200 to 1300 kilocal per kg, which isn't fit for incineration at all. As per our rules of solid waste management 2016, the waste needs to have a calorific value of about 1500 kilocal per kg to be deemed fit for incineration. So we don't need that requirement. All our contracts incentivize dumping. So all the contractors that the municipality hires, they are paid for collecting and dumping waste. That's another big issue. And there is no optimization or participation of informal sector. They are mistreated to the level that there are a lot of areas in the city where informal sector pays corporation the money in order to buy dry waste for them and sell it later. So this is also happening in a lot of areas. And of course, he's already mentioned the grim status of dump sites. Now basically what Delhi or most of the metropolitans must be doing is that the generator needs to segregate at source. MCDs must be providing dustbins, or households should be incentivized to segregate, and they must push or give incentives for segregation. Could be by awarding them, could be by reduction in user fee. Now the bylaws have also come into place, so could be any other way. And also there must be some penalty for non-segregation. As per the new bylaws that have come for the city, there is a penalty for non-segregation which will be applicable 3 months from now. And the next is that we need to strengthen our collection and processing systems. MCDs, when this action plan was submitted, MCDs were to give a roadmap to ensure that how segregated waste will be collected, it will be processed. Delhi has about 1700 dhalaus that are there in this city. So we also gave a suggestion that can't these 1700 dhalaus be converted into processing centers, and the informal sector can be given jobs in these areas. I mean, why waste a plot of land into, they just had plans to demolish all the dhalaus. So we have asked that why not convert those 1700 dhalaus to 1700 processing centers and give jobs to the informal sector. And next is that, of course, create systems for decentralized processing. Elevate the processing capacity to about 10,000 tons per day. It's very low as of now. Convert, as I said, all the dhalaus to dry waste sorting centers, give jobs to informal sector, and incentivize adoption of decentralized methods wherever it's happening. And also push bulk generators for decentralized processing. All the mandis, goshalas of Delhi can have biomethanization plants. All the 5-star hotels, all the restaurants can be asked to do in situ composting or biomethanization. So push for decentralized processing at various levels, and also create market linkages for compost. I mean, most of the households that are producing compost right now have a query that, what do I do of the excess compost? So can a coupon be given to them, so that they can get some discount on vegetables or some discount on the milk that they buy daily from a local milk board. So some sort of incentive mechanism, and also creating a market linkage for the compost that will be produced at a large scale at decentralized level. And lastly, impose user fee and penalties. The last user fee that we had was just a fine of ₹50, the penalty that was imposed for littering in Delhi. So that needs to be elevated, needs to be made about 500 to 1,000 rupees, so that everyone thinks twice before throwing or littering on the streets. So we're also working with all the concepts that we've gathered together. We're working with about 20 cities of the country under an initiative called Forum for Cities That Segregate, where we're trying to, adopt this and spread this philosophy across cities, that of course decentralized management is important, but it cannot happen without segregation at source. So, that's it. Thank you.
I think we have a last presentation with Mr. Agarwal, who just arrived. Yes? No? No? Okay.
Good afternoon to all. I'm Naveen Kumar Agrawal. I am Director in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and I am looking after this Swachh Bharat Mission Urban. This mission has been started on 2nd October 2014. You all are aware. Hello. And the discussion points is these. We have two objectives mainly. First is eradication of open defecation in all 4,041 statutory towns, and second is 100% scientific solid waste management. For this achieving this open defecation, we have to construct almost 66 lakhs Indian household toilets in urban areas and 5 lakh community toilet and public toilets. Achievements in solid waste management so far, that 67 urban wards, almost out of 72,000 wards, have been 100% door-to-door collection. Waste to energy production is 88.4 megawatt. Waste to compost is 13.11 lakh ton per annum, and waste processing is now it is 27, almost 27.11%. This is the landscape of this solid waste. We generate in India 1.45 lakhs tons per day, out of which we are processing now 27%. The composition of waste is like this as per our Indian culture. Biodegradables is most 47%. That's why the waste to compost, we have to, the ministry main emphasis is on waste to compost. These are the policy interventions we have taken. 35% of the detailed project report is being provided as either as a grant or viability gap funding by Government of India for all solid waste management projects. For waste to compost, Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer had notified, and they are giving market development assistance of rupees 1,500 per ton to all the fertilizer companies, ULVs or compost manufacturers. For waste to energy, Ministry of Power has revised the tariff policy, and now it is mandatory that all state electricity board, DISCOMs, has to essentially purchase the power generated out of waste to energy plants, and the price is also fixed by 7.04 unit for simple waste to energy plant, and if the waste to energy plant is by RDF, then rupees 7.90 per unit. The other intervention is plastic in road construction. Ministry of Road, Transport and Highways and notified use of plastic waste in bituminous mix in construction of national highways. And Construction and Waste Management, Central Public Works Department notified mandatory use of recycled portion of construction and demolition waste. For waste to compost, Department of Fertilizers and Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizers has implemented the policy on promotion of city compost. I have already told. And Department of Agriculture has eased out the FCO norms and conditions for the manufacture and sale of city compost. And Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has implemented is a organization for implementation of Municipal Solid Waste Rules 2016 through a Central Monitoring Committee consisting of officers from all the ministries. You have any queries, you can kindly raise, because actually I know everything is so that I presume that you are all understanding. If you have anything you want to ask, you can ask. This is waste to wealth status. Our waste to compost potential is 54 lakhs ton per annum, and as on date, we are production is 13.11 lakhs, and number of plants which are functioning now, it is 145, and that 150 plants are under construction. For waste to energy potential, as per our estimate, there is potential is 511 megawatt, and till now we are generating 88.4 megawatt, and number of functional plant is 7, and 56 plants are under construction. For assessing the efficiency, efficacy, and the implementation of Swachh Bharat mission, we have done annual survey called Swachh Sarvekshan. We have started in 2016. In 2016, there are 73 cities which have been participated, which is more than having population of more than 10 lakhs. And 2017, 434 cities have been participated with population of more than 1 lakh. And this time the survey is going on in all the 4041 cities in India. Pan India, the implementation is the survey is going on, and the response is tremendous what we are getting. Last time Indore was first, and this time we don't know who will come. But the thing is that all ULBs are participating with full vigor. And that's the main objective of this Swachh Sarvekshan.
Excuse me, you can ask one question on Sarvekshan.
Yeah.
Like in Sarvekshan, there is a mark for download the app. What has got the app to do with the Sarvekshan? Because like last year, Indore and Bhopal, the corporation has distributed free SIMs to college students, and they have done it. This is completely, they have miscopied the whole thing. This is completely cheating, because you go to a college where there is 10,000 students, you have distributed hundreds of SIM cards, tell them that you are giving you free net pack, and that was done in many. And what has got downloading our app and to do with the marking? Like you are giving 1400 marks for downloading and calling on 1969.
No, it is not like that. It is not downloading the app. In fact, if you make a complaint and that complaint has been resolved, and on that basis the ULB is being assessed.
Suppose someone doesn't make a complaint, then what it has got to do with that? If there is no dirt and no complaint is made, he gets 0 marks as per your marking.
So we have a question answer discussion after, just wait, once you complete your presentation, we can continue the discussion. Not that they are cutting it off.
You only said that you are not answering. You only asked me. And what I've said is fact. What Indore did, Bhopal did, they
Sure.
Okay, we'll look into it. Okay. This is a news. It simply means that survey is creating impact, because everybody is sensitized to that. This is the basis of Swachh Sarvekshan. The marking is the weightage of marking is as per this now. We have incorporated 5% for innovation this time, and we have increased the percentage of citizens' feedback also. Recently, on 18th January, we have inaugurated the star rating protocol for garbage-free cities. Actually, we have a protocol for open defecation free, but for solid waste management, we have not till now. We don't have any single indicator. We have to ask municipalities to how much is door-to-door collection, how much you are segregating, how much you are processing. There are different questions. For that, we thought that there should be one indicator on which the city can be assessed. For that, we have come out with this star rating protocol. This star rating protocol, just like any other that Bureau of Energy Efficiency and hotel industries, we are giving star rating to the municipalities. For 1 star, 3 star and 1 star, 2 star and 4 star, ULB can themselves assess themselves, and for 3 star, 5 star and 7 star, we will have a independent agency who will verify, and assessment will be done. These are the key components of the star rating protocol. There are 12 components which are included in this star rating: door-to-door collection, segregation, sweeping, waste storage bins, litter bins, material recovery facilities, bulk waste generators, how the bulk waste generators are compliant to this solid waste management rules 2016, land scientific waste processing, landfilling, construction and demolition waste, user fee, penalties, spot fines, citizen grievance redressal, dump remediation, existing landfill remediation, cleaning of storm drains and water bodies, and for 7 star, additional beautification or waste reduction is the criteria for getting 7 star. I think it is same. We are engaging students, self-help group, welfare, resident welfare association, religious leader, development partners, media, as Swachhagrahis, because this is a people movement. Without involvement of people, we can't achieve Swachh Bharat. We have different type of IEC campaign. We have already with Amitabh Bachchan, Shilpa Shetty, a lot of campaign is being run, and it is also run with this Shah Rukh Khan, Aishwarya Rai. These are IEC campaign of different types. This time for this Swachh Sarvekshan, we are engaging Shah Rukh Khan, Anil Kapoor, Sonu Nigam, Veena Malik, Deepa Malik. We have a lot of e-learning courses on our portal, and 5.6 lakh courses already we have given to different municipal employees. These are the ICT-based grievance redressal system. We have already, the things are in place. Swachhata app. We have call center 1969. We have a email, this website. Anything?